In an interview on BBC Two's Newsnight, Diane Abbott spoke about her relationship with Keir Starmer.
I think initially I was treated as a non-person, which felt very strange because, well, at the same time, they were writing to party members trying to raise money on the back of how Hester had treated me without mentioning me, which was a bit odd.
And when you say non-person, I mean, what do you mean by that?
Well, you'd feel that if somebody was threatening to have you shot, you would have felt that your party would have offered you more support, given you advice on safety and security, even kind of commiserated with you, and none of that happened.
And are you saying that the leader, Keir Starmer, treated you as a non-person?
As I recall, Keir Starmer treated me as a non-person, and I got more support from the leader of the SNP, Stephen Flynn, than I got from the leader of my own party.
She's kind of the queen of understatement, isn't she? So you've described him as a non-person. Well, I mean, if it were the case that someone had said how they wanted you shot, you might expect them to show you some recognition, some commiseration. But no, as she said, they sent out fundraising emails based on those comments about her without mentioning her name. Diane Abbott also discussed her suspension from the Labour Party last year and condemned certain policy choices.
For the investigation to drag on for 8 months, when other people who've committed similar offences had their cases wound up in a couple of months, I thought that was quite strange.
So what do you think was going on?
I think that Keir Starmer wanted to finish his clear-out of the left in the Parliamentary Labour Party. And by writing a very ill-advised letter, I gave them the opportunity to move against me. And I think what they were trying to do was to string out the investigation. So when a general election was around the corner, they could just move me out of the way as a Labour candidate because I wouldn't be in the Parliamentary Labour Party and parachute in someone else.
I don't think there's anyone in the country listening to that who would disagree with that. Very clearly, that was their plan, to kick out everyone on the left, and they didn't expect the backlash that came, in particular because of the suspension of Diane Abbott, because I think no one close to Keir Starmer had any idea whatsoever as to what she meant, not just to the Labour left, but also to black people and especially black women in this country. And then the way they treated her, they had no idea that backlash was coming, right? No idea. We talk about the people around Keir Starmer being a bit out of touch. I think that was as good an example as any. Let's hear what Diana Abbott had to say about Starmer's government so far.
I'm a bit worried about the cutting of the winter fuel allowance. And one of the things that's difficult about it, I think particularly for newer colleagues, people don't vote Labour only for a few weeks later. People, the Labour Party take money off pensioners.
Do you fear being suspended again? Or
No. I mean, they took it away from me once. It's up to them if they want to do it again. No, I'm not fussed about that.
So it's really interesting sort of seeing Diane Abbott there. I suppose because she's already survived that attempt to get rid of her, she seems to be a bit more confident than other Labour left MPs when it comes to criticising Keir Starmer, both in interviews there. I mean, also sort of earlier this week, she sort of tweeted Keir Starmer with Georgia Maloney, sort of saying, what's he doing, talking to a fascist. She seems like she is not so terrified as losing the whip as many other Labour MPs. I suppose, because what does she have to lose? I imagine she probably won't be standing in an election in 4 years' time. I think in essence, probably on some level, she might have wanted to stand out at the last one, but she didn't want to do so in a manner where she was being humiliated by the horrible right-wing thugs around Keir Starmer. But it is interesting. Helena, do you think Diane Abbott, is potentially going to be one of the more empowered Labour MPs when it comes to being critical of Keir Starmer, precisely because he tried and failed to get rid of her?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember at the time, I think there was reported that Keir Starmer had asked her, is there anything I can do to help you after the Frank Hester's comments? And she said, you should give me back the whip. And then got completely blanked after that, or had that request ignored, of course, because they were at the time deliberately misleading the press and the public by saying, oh, well, this is all out of our hands. We need to wait for the investigation to get cleared, when it had already been cleared, and the whips were just trying to wait out the clock until parliamentary selections were going on for the future general election. One of the biggest criticisms that Diane Abbott gets, because of like one moment a few years ago, they say, oh, well, no, she's not politically savvy, or they will mock her for that, mess up on a couple of numbers. This just shows just how politically savvy that she really is, that she's masterfully on her own, essentially, been able to kind of run rings around what I'm assuming the people within the Labour Party, like within the Starmer Politburo, believe to be an incredibly well-executed campaign trying to remove the left from the party. And on her own, she's managed to completely circumvent that by playing to the media in the best way possible, especially in the wake of those Frank Hester comments. It was clear for a long time the press were never going to hold any of the Labour right accountable over what had happened. They, stuff like with Lloyd Russell Moyle and with especially Faiza Shaheen, where she was getting removed from her position just because one of the reasons they gave us, she was making the party look bad by saying that, by raising concerns over Islamophobia. But the real kind of tipping point was them still being nasty to Diane Abbott over the whip in the wake of the Frank Hester comments. And she took that and she used that to put a stop. The purge immediately stopped as soon as this came out. And the public, when polled, showed actually they thought the Labour right were massively in the wrong. And they thought not just Diane Abbott, but Jeremy Corbyn should be allowed back into the party. The public opinion turned because Diane Abbott was clearly trying to be able to make the crowd turn against the Labour right. And she did it incredibly well. And what this shows, there was a really great article on Novara's website by an ex-Momentum organiser talking about how to be able to defeat the Labour right from the left, it's about hard power as well as soft power. And that hard power has to come from within the Labour Party as well as outside the Labour Party. Now, I, of course, am a Green Party member and a Green Party supporter, but it actually is super important that we do have people who, now they know they have the power to challenge the leadership from the inside. In the same way that Nigel Farage has his own friends within the Conservative Party as well, we need to have people broadly as a left-wing ideological movement, and need to have people within the Labour Party who are fighting for our interests as well. It's no good just to say, oh, it's all over, everybody has to leave, because it clearly shows that even rhetorically, with regards to how she can use the media to her advantage, people like Diane Abbott, people like Zara Sultana have made it very clear that they can now be openly critical in the wake of what has seemed to be very draconian measures by the Labour right to try and get rid of these people, which hasn't been received well, not before the election with people like Dan, and not after the election, given the 7 who were suspended over the 2-child benefit cap vote as well. So a really, really excellently worked political strategy from Diane Abbott there.